June 24, 1978. A quiet summer afternoon at a Ryland Homes sales trailer in Dale City. Inside, three women lie motionless. 17-year-old Karen Scarbrough, fresh from graduation and eager to begin her first job, 25-year-old teacher Sharon Lake, and 23-year-old consultant Deborah Frank, in town house hunting with a friend. Each brutally shot once in the head. No warning, no struggle, no motive. Nearly half a century later, their murders remain unsolved. No answers, only haunting questions that still cling to the shadows of that trailer. Intricate clues, a red Volkswagen seen near the trailer that night, a Ryland Homes buyer card filled out with a fake name and phony contact number, and suspect interviews that led detectives to dead ends. Those are the threads this case leaves behind. Investigators chased every lead. Neighbors who remembered a strange car, handwriting analysts who could not place the buyer card, and interviews that produced conflicting stories but no charge. Police even wondered if this was the work of someone practiced, a calm, efficient killer who left no obvious motive and no clear trail. The Federal Bureau of Investigation was consulted. Detectives described the slayings as execution style and like nothing the county had seen before. Decades later, the red Volkswagen report and that untraceable buyer card still read like a taunt, close enough to suggest a lead, distant enough to remain out of reach. Stay with me. By the end of this episode, you'll hear the witnesses, the contradictions, the key suspect interviews, and why, after all these years, those pieces still fail to form a picture the police can prosecute. We begin with three names that deserve more than memory. Karen Scarbrough, just 17 and fresh out of high school, had taken her first ever job working in that Ryland Homes sales trailer. She was shy and kind. Her family says she called home every night to check in on her younger siblings. Then there was Sharon Lake, 25, a first-grade teacher in Dale City, known for her warmth and dedication in the classroom. One of her students once said she had a smile that made you brave for a test. Sharon was the kind of teacher children remembered long after they'd left her room. And Deborah Frank, 23, a consultant from Alexandria helping Sharon look for her next home. She was intelligent and adventurous. Friends say she once took a random weekend trip, just because it felt like something to do. On June 24, 1978, these three women came together in that trailer, not as victims, but as individuals with hopes and lives unfolding. Karen, dreaming of her first career. Sharon, shaping young minds. Deborah, looking to start anew. And no one would have guessed their laughter and conversation that afternoon would end in nothing but bullets in the back of their heads. It was the height of Dale City's boom, a mid-Atlantic suburb hurtling toward the horizon. The houses came fast, built by Cecil D. Hilton on the rolling hills of Prince William County, each one a testament to post-war American homeownership. By 1978, nearly 10,000 families had moved in, drawn by affordability and proximity to Washington, D.C. But beneath the optimism lay isolation, sparse police presence, limited infrastructure, and long stretches between schools, shops, and neighbors. At the edge of a new subdivision, a Ryland Homes sales trailer stood alone, faintly lit and framed by grading piles and fresh sod. An island of community hope in an unsettled landscape. That afternoon, three women arrived separately at the trailer. Karen Scarbrough, 14 days out of high school, eager but nervous for her first paycheck. Sharon Lake, a first-grade teacher, warm and methodical, scheduling a new life for her students. And Deborah Frank, just 23, visiting with Sharon, excited about the chance of putting down new roots. They passed the new for sale signs, stepped over dug-up dirt, unaware of the darkness waiting inside. Maybe they joked about the home prices, just over $40,000 for a 4-bedroom back then. Maybe they marveled at the open layout or the quiet street. One imagines small talk about weekend plans or decorating ideas. But no one was ready for what came next. 10 minutes. That's all it took for 3 lives to intersect fatefully. 10 minutes before time stood still inside that sales trailer. No one could imagine what was waiting for them behind that door. The silence would become a crime scene, not a struggle. No weapon left behind. Not a single motive recorded. And by sunset, Dale City would be scarred and forever changed. When the door finally opened, what investigators found would be beyond anything the county had ever seen. At roughly 7 p.m., the first officers entered that compact shell of hope, now a house of horror. There they found 3 bodies, Karen Scarbrough, Sharon Lake, and Deborah Frank, lying side by side in motionless silence. Each had been shot once in the back of the head, execution style. No sign of struggle, no trace of the murder weapon. Just the ghostly stillness of a perfect crime. The copper scent of stale coffee lingered in the stale trailer air, forgotten in a moment of violence. A sales brochure radio, still faintly humming some pitch, mixed with the dust of demolition outside. The windshield remained flawless, no drawers pulled open, no photos disturbed. Everything appeared untouched, as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened, except horror. There was no broken glass, no overturned chairs to suggest a struggle. The real estate paraphernalia lay untouched, audience smiles preserved in faded photographs. These not insignificant details hinted at one cruel possibility. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was calculated and cold. Then a whisper in the investigation, a red Volkswagen seen idling near the trailer that afternoon. Only that, no plate number, no driver description. Just a color and a presence. But even that thread vanished. No match in vehicle registries, no concrete witness, no arrests. The lead drifted into the wind. Then investigators discovered the buyer interest card on the counter, filled with name, address, and phone number, all fabricated. The handwriting, worse than useless, it was taunting. A bluff, a trap, a message from an unseen killer. In that moment, the trailer wasn't just a crime scene, it was a fortress of silence, enveloping secrets. A mystery that would haunt detectives for decades. When word spread about the triple murder, Dale City seemed to slow under the weight of suspicion. Officers moved methodically, knocking on doors, speaking to construction crews, nearby shop clerks, residents who worked the surrounding lots. But nobody saw a struggle. Nobody heard a shot. In a neighborhood where every sound carried, the silence was the loudest clue of all. That quiet suburb felt unmoored. Lieutenant C.T. Dean, who would later reflect on the case with visible unease, said no victim had any known enemies. There was no apparent motive. Prince William County Police called it the most shocking crime in the county's history, and the word they used repeatedly was perplexing. For a time, the murders dominated local headlines. Residents read updates with a mix of fear and disbelief. But as weeks passed with no arrests, coverage shifted. Stories that began on the front page slipped inside, and eventually off the page entirely. The urgency of the first days gave way to something far heavier. The grinding weight of uncertainty. The investigation in those first months was exhaustive. Fingerprint dusting, ballistic tests, door-to-door canvassing, composite sketches. But every lead collapsed. Prints were smudged or unmatchable. Witness statements conflicted or faded with time. Even tips from informants, when chased down, evaporated. The evidence bags that once promised answers became boxes in a storage room, gathering dust. Then, a break, or what seemed like one. Prosecutors released a composite sketch of a man considered a major suspect. Witnesses described him as medium-built, curly reddish-blonde hair, wearing a striped pullover, last seen leaving the area in a dark hatchback. But even after contradicting his own account of that day, no physical evidence placed him inside the trailer. The lead that once lit up the investigation dimmed back into darkness. Another man came forward on his own, denying any involvement. Police cleared him after questioning, but suspicion lingered. Some detectives explored possible links to drug activity in the area, yet the theory lacked hard proof. As months turned into years, tensions grew inside the department. The pressure to deliver answers weighed against the gnawing reality that they were chasing ghosts. The Dale City triple murder marked every investigator who touched it. Detectives who once worked cases of theft or fraud now carried the memory of 3 execution-style killings with no suspect to charge. By 1985, Lieutenant Dean confirmed the case was no longer active, still unsolved, still open in name only. Without a break, the file was boxed, shelved, and left to time. In the official record, it became just another cold case. But to those who worked it, it never left. Months into the investigation, a name surfaced. Police never publicly released it, but they did release his description. Medium build, curly reddish-blonde hair, a striped pullover. Officers brought him in for questioning, noting an unusual nervousness, hands clasped too tightly, eyes darting between the floor and the door. His story shifted in small but telling ways. Times didn't match up. Details contradicted earlier statements. And yet, for all the suspicion, not a shred of physical evidence tied him to the scene. Detectives pushed. They circled back on the same questions, looking for cracks. Why was he near the Ryland Homes site that evening? Why did he claim not to know the victims, when a coworker thought otherwise? His answers were short, clipped, sometimes overly detailed, as if rehearsed. But without fingerprints, without a murder weapon, without a witness willing to testify, the suspect walked out of the station and back into the world. The only solid physical clue, the bullets, matched no registered weapon in the state. Forensic analysts determined they were fired from a .38 caliber revolver, but the rifling pattern was worn, almost smoothed out, making it impossible to narrow down a specific make or model. Investigators also found flecks of pale green paint in the trailer's entryway, likely transferred from a vehicle or tool. But the shade was common, used on everything from pickup truck fenders to construction ladders. The trail stopped before it began. The one piece of evidence that felt personal was a simple buyer card. Standard practice, anyone entering the trailer signed in, left a name, an address, sometimes a phone number. On the day of the murders, one card stood out, an unfamiliar name, an address that led to a vacant lot, and a phone number that rang into nowhere. Some detectives believed it was deliberate, a calling card meant to taunt, or perhaps a smokescreen to waste police time. To this day, the handwriting has never been matched to any known suspect. What the public didn't know then, and what case files later revealed, was that a witness had seen someone resembling the lead suspect near the trailer shortly before the murders. He was walking quickly, glancing over his shoulder, as if making sure no one followed. The statement was kept private by police, a tactical decision to avoid tipping their hand. But even this sighting lacked the hard proof they needed. A look-alike, after all, is not a conviction. Inside the department, Doubts grew. Was their prime suspect really the killer, or just an unlucky man in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or was he playing them, carefully staying one step ahead? Without answers, the case file thickened, pages upon pages of interviews, evidence logs, and follow-up notes that led in circles. By the close of the first year, police had a suspect, a weapon type, trace evidence, and a cryptic buyer card. But none of it connected cleanly. It was a puzzle missing its center, the kind of case that kept detectives awake at night, staring at their ceilings, wondering if they'd shaken the right tree, or let the killer slip by entirely. Almost half a century later, the Dale City triple murder remains one of Virginia's darkest unsolved crimes. In the minds of those who worked the case, the trailer's silence still echoes. They remember the way the bodies were placed, the absence of chaos, and the chilling precision of a killer who left without a trace. Time hasn't eroded the questions, only deepened them. Some investigators still carry it with them, the sense that they brushed shoulders with the killer and didn't know it. One retired detective admitted he still dreams about the case, replaying the interviews, wondering if there was a sentence, a glance, that he should have caught. For them, this isn't just a file in a cabinet. It's an open wound. Why was that buyer card filled out with such care, yet with false information? Who drove the red Volkswagen spotted near the trailer? And if the lead suspect wasn't the killer, why did he seem so nervous in that police interview room? Every clue dangles like a thread, but pulling on any of them seems to unravel nothing. Over the years, theories have filled the void. Some point to a disgruntled homebuyer or a rival real estate worker. Others suspect a drifter passing through. And then there are those who believe the prime suspect was guilty all along, someone hiding in plain sight, shielded by a lack of evidence and the passage of time. Was the killer sitting across from detectives the whole time? Or was he a ghost they never even looked at? The truth remains sealed somewhere between the lies and the silence, locked in a crime scene that's long since vanished, but not forgotten. We want to hear your thoughts. Do you think the prime suspect was the real killer, or is the truth still out there, waiting to be uncovered? Share your theory in the comments, and if you want to explore more haunting cold cases, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one.